Welcome to the reality check. June 12th, 2018. So tonight, big topics, of course, suicide, who's to blame? And then, sad note, the rest of it hopefully will be positive. The rest of the show we can do UFC 225 review and the World Cup preview. And then whatever else we can fit into this hour. So suicide, a big topic. Obviously, we got to think about it, not just the recent ones, but in the past, pretty much 2 years, you've had people from Chester Bennington, Chris Cornell, Tommy Page, Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, Mark Salling, and many more people. Obviously, common folk as well, happens all the time, and not really reported, underreported, not reported at all. But it's touched most people's lives in some way. Now, Robin Williams was that big name a few years back, and instead of looking for solutions or saying how horrible it is, not only is that just not good, obviously, maybe the people are struggling through demons, but how, no matter what demons you have, how to do that to your family, and it just, like, in the way that some of these people had committed. So pretty much for your family to find right there in your family's face, almost like a confrontational thing. Are these people doing it because they wanted to kill somebody else and they couldn't, so they're killing themselves? Are they doing it, because they're angered at their family, because they're depressed? There's many reasons, I'm sure. But like in the Kate Spade case, she said the Robin Williams thing made her pretty much fantasize about it more. I think one of the problems is we've, like with the Kate Spade saying that Robin Williams made her fantasize about it more. You're making these people heroic. Robin Williams has gone down as a hero. That's a hero? The guy killed himself. Yeah, okay, maybe he was battling depression and whatnot. That doesn't make him a hero. Because you're battling depression and you took the easy way out, it doesn't make you a hero. It just makes you a person with struggles. Heroes overcome their struggles. And you say, oh, he wasn't made a hero. He was. You talk about how everyone, no, he wasn't that great. He was pretty much somebody like us. Yes, he had a talent, but he was no better than the common man, and he failed for that. And they're naming bridges after him? Come on, seriously? This is not heroic. It's very sad, and it's horrible when you have a family. The pure selfishness of it, when you have young kids and a family. It probably takes a family 2 generations to get over a suicide. Think about it. Your kids live with that. In the case of Kate Spade, or just any of these other people, in fact, their kids, when they're young, they have to live with that. They're always going to think that. No matter how much you can tell a kid, it wasn't your fault, it had nothing to do with you, it's still going to be in their mind. Always. Damage to their life. Just like when a kid gets molested. Your parent killing themselves is a damage to your life. Something that is always going to be there. A ghost that haunts you. And it'll haunt your family for, like I said, probably 2 generations. You think about it. Their kids. Oh, my grandparent, yeah, they killed themselves. That's why they're not around. Oh, you know her, or you know this person. Oh, yeah, they're the person that hung themselves here, did this and that. You've just ruined the family for 2 generations. I know these people are probably sick. So now we know the damage it does. But, I think the biggest thing that causes, even more than media making these people heroic, and this goes from everyday life to the famous people, is the antidepressants, the drugs. Antidepressants are up 25% over the last 15 years. They give these pills to kids, and to kids, all the research shows it does absolutely nothing good for a kid. It doesn't stop them from depression. Actually, if anything, it makes it worse. And they're attempting suicide more often. from studies from the 90s, which is the infancy of these studies, infancy of these drugs, we have known that antidepressants, the ones with the serotonin and many other inhibitors, are horrible for people. They wreck their lives. They they make people want to commit suicide more. They really don't make you well. And even half the cases where people are at least able to live their life, it's such a, just your molecular, it's messing with your body, with your mind. Because let's say you stop taking these drugs because you feel you're better, you don't like some side effect it gives you, and then you stop taking these things, that's when the people are more in danger of committing suicide, because they're these compounds mess with you. So if you're taking it for a year or so, and you think you're healthy, or you're these kids that I was talking about that have been taken from your teenage years, and I don't feel as depressed as I once did, but I feel sluggish, I feel tired, I don't feel like a human being, and you stop taking it, or you run out of finances and you stop taking it, and you just don't get another prescription in time, and you stop taking these things. That's another thing that can lead to suicide, something that's just not right in your mind. And unfortunately, is the biggest cause of suicide. Just drugs in general, and most of them are prescribed drugs. They're the biggest cause of suicide. That in general would, lower the suicide rates if they capped a lot of these things, and we just got to deal with it, without drugs. The drugs are a crutch, and a false crutch at that. So that was the sad part of the opening of the show. Next up, I guess we can go, because we have a lot of stuff to go over today, especially a lot of sports heavy stuff. So UFC 225 was in Chicago last Saturday. Really good card. Now, of course, we had the curveball before the card where Yoel Romero, unbelievably, was 1 pound over with 2 hours left to cut, and the commission stopped him from cutting the last 0.2 pounds, so he was overweight, so it was a non-title 5-round fight, which, that unfortunately cut a lot of steam going into the card out. That was pretty, upsetting that they're not fighting for the title. I almost thought that they should have switched the Covington-Dos Anjos fight to the main event and put this one lower, and they could have still cut their 5 rounds, that's fine, but the last fight should have been the title fight. But putting that aside, this card worked out really well. If you didn't get a chance to catch it, what a good card all around. Alistair Overeem was a prelim fight. I told you it was a big fight between him and Curtis Blades. And man, Curtis Blades, I had said that Overeem would win by unanimous decision. I said he'd play it safe. He'd try to stay away from Blades and just go in and out, and just with his experience, him being such a good striker, I thought he could outlast Blades. And Blades just kept on coming and coming and coming. And Overeem was even more hesitant. He just looked hesitant. It was the first, he just didn't seem open at all. Like, he's so scared of his chin now that he just wasn't open. He opened up once or twice and threw a few kicks, and he had like a 3 or 4 hit combination on Blades, and like, okay, yeah, here we go. But that wasn't even until the second round. And then he never did anything like that again. And Curtis Blades got him down in the third and just started pounding on and Overeem. Just, wow, he usually looks pretty good in the guard. Blades just ripped right through him, elbowed him a few times, and his head just exploded. It was Bloody Saturday all over the mat. And so Curtis Blades, 3rd round TKO, good for him. He moves up to 10-1, and he's got to be one of the top heavyweights. At 10-1, definitely one of the top heavyweights around. So he should probably could be in line for fighting for the title against the winner of Miocic and Cormier. At 10-1, definitely leaves him up there. And for Overeem, I don't know. I think he's got to make a decision, do something about his chin, like a few years ago when Andrei Arlovski came back and he was a lot less susceptible to being knocked out. He did some work on his chin. He straightened so that he even talked about it for a while. Even Overeem, needs to do some of that, and then he can get back into the way he used to fight, or it's just going to be pretty rough for him because he just seems so nervous now about getting hit and knocked out that, wow, he's just looking less than human now. So in the main card, first fight was CM Punk, former WWE two-time champ, I believe, 0-1, going against Mike the Truth Jackson, 0-1. Mike Jackson was a boxer, kickboxer. He's an MMA photographer, to say nonetheless. And I didn't expect much out of either guy. I just kind of said, I said Mike Jackson's a fish, and hopefully Punk can find a way to beat him by a split decision in a sloppy fight, just because we need to keep the dream alive, and it's just, it'd be nice to see him go. But man, CM Punk just, for as long as he's been training now, he just doesn't look good at all. I mean, he had some kind of nice, like he's trying to put the rubber guard and stuff. From the bottom, he actually looked somewhat okay, but just, I mean, he just, when he got Jackson down, he just really couldn't keep him down. He didn't seem like he could put effective strikes. Like, he'd hit him once, but not much. And Mike Jackson just, it looked like two fish flopping around there. That was the term we used in high school. Just a bunch of fish flopping around. And Jackson just, he looked bad. It looked like he was fooling around, like he could have knocked CM Punk out, but he wasn't gonna. He just looked like he was more interested in showboating and fooling around. I mean, it was an embarrassment. If you want to do that for one round and make a point, like, this guy's an embarrassment, shouldn't be in with me, that's fine. Then Jackson should have just torched him and just knocked him out in the second round. And he didn't. I don't know. He looked more of a fool than Punk. I mean, at least for CM Punk, he said a guy at heart, he was trying. He didn't give up. He was totally outclassed in the ring again by a guy who doesn't have much class. So pretty much for CM Punk, he wants to fight, man. I wouldn't begrudge him that. Just, it's got to be like in some other, maybe on the minor part of Bellator, or even below that, we end up on Access TV fighting on Saturday nights or whatnot. One of the lower things. That's pretty much where he needs to go. And for Mike Jackson, Dana White said, yeah, this guy is not coming back here. He's an embarrassment. I pretty much agree. I mean, it was just embarrassing, So, if I didn't say it, Jackson won, unanimous decision. I mean, that was it. And then the one thing about Punk that was disappointing is it looked like his cardio was pretty rough. Like, I don't know, like, you have to know, like, when I was in high school, I was overweight. Yeah, I know, shocking. I've always been overweight. But when I was in high school, I was overweight, and I started to wrestle to try to get my weight under control because I wanted to play football, I wanted to play baseball, I played hockey. So I wanted to at least be in somewhat shape, so I thought wrestling would be a good way. And wrestling, I grew to love it. And the one thing I realized, I was never going to catch up, because where I grew up in New Jersey, kids hit the weights all the time. And you had kids, if you didn't bench your weight, you were an embarrassment, And so I had started way later than a lot of other people lifting. And I figured, the only way I'll have a shot is not to outmuscle these guys, but was, be smarter, work harder, and be in shape. So, maybe these muscle sharks were tired in the third round, and I could start abusing them and getting back some of these points and winning fights. And that's what worked for me. That's what would happen. A lot of guys would beat my head in the first two, and the third round I'd have my way with them, even though they were kind of tight. They had muscles everywhere. But, that was the way I found some success. And you would think with CM Punk, or anybody, to be honest, that's one of the most important things, to have good cardio. If you have good cardio and you have great heart, it'll overcome a lot of this stuff. Lack of athleticism, lack of skill. At least having those two takes you some of the way, and then you can build your skill through the time, But anyway, enough of that one. Enough of my 2 cents. So next fight, Andrei Arlovski, Tai Tuivasa. Tuivasa was 9-0. Arlovski was 27-15. Really good fight. Went back and forth. A lot of hits by both of them. Tuivasa was split open. He had his moments in the fight. Arlovski had his moments in the fight. It was a really close fight. I think the one thing that was silly was that near the end, Arlovsky was putting his hand up like he won, walking around the ring with a few seconds left. He should have been just trying to hit and punch and kick and do anything he can just to leave that lasting impression on the judges. And so like I said, it was a close fight. All of the judges scored it 29-28 for Tuivasa, which, I don't know. I mean, it could have went either way. It was really close. I mean, overall, I think the overall punches and kicks and everything, the hits, was actually within 3 or 4 for the whole fight. Really good fight. At the end of the day, I mean, where Arlovsky's in his career, this guy's, he should still get more fights. I mean, that was to go against a guy who was 9-0, to put one of these young and up and comers to put on that type of a fight. It was entertaining. Neither guy backed down. It was fun and good for Arlovsky. It was a loss. It sucks, but you know what? He'll get another fight for, Tuivasa. Hey, you just beat somebody that's known. You beat a former heavyweight champion, and in a close fight. So for him, it was good ring time and good octagon time. He was in deep waters. He was in trouble at times. He was cut, and he made it all through that to do enough to win a decision. So that's only positive for his growth as a fighter, and he'll move up the rankings, and he'll fight somebody tougher even. So, that'll be a good one. Good fight, and it'll be, good for his Tuivasa's career. And obviously Arlovsky's career will continue to go on because the guy is just awesome. He's just awesome to be fighting for as long as he has. I mean, it's amazing. So the next fight was Holly Holm against Megan, and yes, it's Megan Anderson. So Holly Holm, 11-4. We all know her. She's fought in the UFC for many years. First person to beat Ronda Rousey, who during this event actually got elected to the UFC Hall of Fame, which will be the July 4th, right around there, International Fighters Week. So good for Ronda Rousey. She'll be the first female in the UFC into the Hall of Fame. So Holly Holm, has beaten her. She's competed in 2 weight divisions now in the UFC. She's a multiple weight boxing champ, the most successful woman boxer, I would say, in the history of boxing. And Megan Anderson, it was amazing. She was so tall and lanky. It was crazy. She started actually hitting Holmes in the beginning of the fight. It was kind of interesting how her reach, and she started to actually hit Holmes. I thought Holmes would wear, Megan out, and I thought she'd win by decision. And that was pretty much what happened. Holmes she looked a lot stronger this fight, physically. I guess she learned from the Cyborg fight, add on a little muscle, and she just competed like she did at Cyborg fight. She was there, and she started imposing her will on Megan Anderson. She ended up probably sneaking back, winning the first round. She won the second, and the third round, she was just totally outclassing Megan Anderson. And if they think this girl is going to compete with Cyborg, she's a ways away. She won't match. I know she's long and all that stuff. She might hit Cyborg once, but Cyborg will walk right through her. There's way too much power. I mean, Holmes outpowered her. So Holly Holm, good win for her. She definitely looked like the one more experienced. She looked in better shape, and she won by unanimous decision. So I think next for Holm is a title shot against Amanda Nunes, because Amanda Nunes is going to run again and not fight Cyborg. So she could fight Holly Holm. It'll be a good fight. That'll be interesting. And I think that's good. And the winner of that probably should fight Cyborg, because I don't know who else is left for Cyborg. It's Megan Anderson. Yeah, it just doesn't look that appealing. Sorry. Doesn't at all. A really good fight for Holm, and she looked in better shape than ever. So I was pretty happy with that. So at least that gave me one prediction right for the night right there, because I was 0 for 3 on the others. Now the next fight was Rafael dos Anjos versus Colby Covington. Colby Covington's the new big shit talker in the UFC, but he's backed it up so far. Coming into this fight, he was 10-1, 5-fight win streak, and Dos Anjos is 20-9, former lightweight champion. Now, for me, I thought there were so many ways that Dos Anjos could win, and I thought Colby would be like Kevin Lee, where he came in for his first time crack at that title, and he would have his moments, but ultimately I thought he would end up losing by a TKO. Now, I said that the one thing, though, that got me nervous about that prediction was that Rafael dos Anjos is known to struggle with big guys that, press him. And Colby's not that much of a bigger guy, but he pressed him. And not only was it the right game plan for Colby, but it was executed flawlessly. He came right at dos Anjos, right from the opening bell. There was no point in the fight where I've seen other guys press, but there's seconds or a little bit of time where they give this person time to rest, and Colby was on RDA like white on rice. He was on him like flies on dog shit. And he did not give him a second even to reset. Like when he pushed back, he was just on again. It was gone in there. And sometimes I was thinking, wow, he's going to take a few punches. He didn't care. He just walked right in and he grabbed the hold of RDA, whether he was trying to take him down, whatever it was. He totally physically dominated RDA. The only success RDA had was in the fourth round. He took down Colby a few times, but he really didn't do anything with it. I don't know. It was weird that Colby went down so easy from dos Anjos. I don't know if he was kind of surprised by it, but still at that point, he didn't do much with it. Colby got up those times, and like I said, Colby pressed him the whole fight, just bullied RDA around, and it shows that point again. RDA can't handle those guys that are physical with him like that, and he won. He won by unanimous decision. So Colby became the new champ, the interim champ, and he right away was on that microphone and just blasting Tyron Woodley, saying he wants a shot at him, and he made him fight this filthy pig dos Anjos, and then Colby, of course, talked about how he's bringing the belt to Donald Trump because he's an American. So pretty funny, pretty humorous. Even afterwards, they started the post-fight show. He was starting to fight with Michael Bisping. Colby's got a lot of energy, man. He was hyped up, and in the fight, he did not look tired. So ought to be an interesting fight. Woodley and Colby, can't wait for that to happen. And, that was an exciting fight to watch. It was pretty good. So the main event, which wasn't a title fight, unfortunately, of course, Yoel Romero was 0.2 pounds over. So it was a year ago that they had fought previously, Whitaker and Romero, and it was Whitaker ended up messing up his leg and finding a way to ink out a decision over Romero, who just looked god-awful tired after, the second round. So I had said that I thought Romero would knock him out in the second round. And unfortunately, I'm not Romero's manager, because if I was, that's probably what would have happened here. I wanted him to attack. I know all these people said he should conserve energy. Look, if you're going to be tired, then you're going to be tired. You're going to be on fumes. It is what it is. You're going to sit there and agonize through that. You have to just go for it. Go for broke. Go to knock him out, because Romero has that power. He can knock someone out. And I know Whitaker is a tough guy. Man, I respect both these guys more after this fight, but especially Whitaker. But, Romero just has to go for broke. He doesn't have the cardio for whatever reason, because he's too busy weightlifting hardcore, and he is 41 now. I understand that, and because of the massive weight he cuts, I'm sure it cuts into his cardio for that. But that's something they haven't addressed. That's on him and his camp's fault. But he has to go for broke. Then, even more importantly, it's important that he just goes out and starts hitting. Maybe fill out the first round, but after that, you got to go for broke. And he sat back pretty much the first two rounds. The first round, he did absolutely nothing, Romero. Second round, a few shots he was going for the fences, but not much. And then, so Whitaker pretty much touched him all over the place, hit him. And he pretty much messed up Romero a little bit. And then in the third round, Romero came out swinging, and he started being aggressive and hit Whitaker with some bombs. He dropped Whitaker twice straight on the canvas in the fight. And there was a third time where it looked like Whitaker's body went out for that split second, like he was all wobbly, and he regained himself before he fell. And it was a few times where Romero had Whitaker, he let him get close and I don't know why fighters always do that. You got the guy in the ropes, stand back and punch and punch. That's what Anderson Silva, Vitor Belfort were good for. You can't go in close, and then this guy just holds you, and that gives him time. All he's trying to do is hold on for life till the cobwebs get cleared, and they can fight again, until he gets a sense in there. If you don't give him that, it's usually if you hit him and you hit him, it's just going to, you don't even need to hit him with hard shots. It's the same with most fighters. You hit him, and they're wobbly. You just hit him a few times, he's going to go down, and once they go down, then they're the ones who have to do something. And it's hard to do something when someone's raining down big fists on you, and if they don't do anything, the ref stops it. So, I mean, Romero was so close a few times. It was amazing. It was a good fight, though. Whitaker showed so much heart coming back after that. And Romero, too. I mean, they were pretty active. They went at it. It ended up being a split decision for Whitaker. Me and a lot of people there, even the commentators, were kind of confused how that happened. Like, no, we're not confused. We know how, but I mean, just the scoring on that made no sense because, yes, Whitaker won 3 rounds, 10-9. There was no part where he had Romero really in danger. And then Romero won 2 rounds. But one of the rounds, I mean, he knocked him down. So it had to be 10-8. One of them, if not even both, you could have said could have been 10-8. But I would say one. And it should have been a draw. And Whitaker won. UFC lucked out in that for many reasons. Because it would have looked bad if Whitaker lost, and then he's still the champ, and then Romero's not the champ because of 0.2 pounds, and then you almost have to have a rematch at that point. But right now, you don't need a rematch because Romero lost twice. Maybe he goes up in a weight class. And so Whitaker ended up breaking his hand, which was another thing. He broke his hand in this fight. And you can tell it. I was like, when I was sitting there watching the fight, my daughter was there, and I was telling her, his hands broke. So if I'm Romero, I just keep on streaming shots at what he kicks and whatever. This guy is going to be slow to block him, and then it's going to hurt him every time he blocks him. And one time he's just not going to be as, quick to get up there because it's going to be a little gunshot because his hand hurts, and he's going to, and boom, you're going to catch him. So that was kind of weird, too, that the corner, I don't know if his corner didn't realize, but they should have been like, you need to go after that side. And I didn't really hear that. I know they had to translate for that, but yeah, it was, I don't know, he should have went after that hand. But it was a really good fight. It was exciting. Both guys had a lot of heart. You got to respect both of them after that. And I guess Romero goes up in weight class, and Whitaker will take on the next challenger. Well, that's pretty much the way that's going to go. So that was UFC 225. UFC 226 comes up in July. That's part of the annual Fighters, fans fest they have, where Sid Ronda Rousey will be inducted in the Hall of Fame, and they have a lot of fighters come in Vegas. It'd be nice. One year I think I'll get up there, but not this year. But that card is going to be a really good card. So can't wait to see that one. Now, Thursday. Big sports day. Start of the World Cup. So I think what I'll do for World Cup, there's, groups A through H. I think I will go over who I think is going to advance in each group. And from there, we'll see how that plays out. And then we'll go to maybe a tally sheet for the final 16, which ought to be interesting. I thought I had one over here to show you guys. Maybe not. What'd I do with it? Oh, man, did I lose it already? Well, anyway, there's a final sheet I have with the 16, kind of like brackets in basketball. So I'll have the final 16 after, 2 teams from each of the 8 brackets come out. So basically, you play each team once, and the 2 top teams in each division or bracket group, I should say, they come out, and then they go basically, straight up tournament, 16 teams. So in the first group, That's a group that has what? Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Uruguay. Um, Obviously, it starts out the host Russia. So some things about the World Cup. It's the 21st World Cup in Russia. No USA. The USA team did not qualify. Very poor and sad. It's Panama, who did qualify over the U.S., their first time ever. Peru, it's their first time since '82. And it's the first time that Russia has hosted the World Cup. Obviously top players to look for. I'm sure most of you guys who follow soccer, who even follow it slightly, know the names. Messi from Argentina, Neymar Jr. from Brazil, who's just coming back, looks healthy from his injury. Ronaldo from Portugal, who you see his commercials everywhere. And Griezmann from France, Warner from Germany. And then the top teams, which some of those guys are on, Brazil, Germany, who's the defending champ, Spain, and France. I mean, for me, those are the top 4 teams. If one of those 4 teams don't win, it's pretty much a surprise. So for Group A, like I said, it was Russia, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Uruguay. I think the 2 teams that make it on to the next round are Egypt and Uruguay. I mean, I see for Egypt, I think they might only win 1 game, but they'll tie the other 2. And for Uruguay, they'll get at least 2 wins out of the 3, and maybe tie 1. I don't see them losing in the first round. I mean, Russia and Saudi Arabia are just not as good. For Group B, that's Morocco, Iran, Portugal, and Spain. I see Spain and Portugal are the 2 class of this division. They will both go on. I see them winning their games in set 4 when Spain and Portugal go against each other. That one will probably be a tie, and they'll both be like 2-0-1. And then Morocco will get their only win over Iran, but it's going to be a 0 point for them. In Group C, you have France, Australia, Peru, and Denmark. A little bit of an interesting division, but I see Denmark and France the ones moving on. I think Denmark will do quite well. They're a pretty decent team, and Peru, they're going to be happy to be there. First time, like I said, since '82, and I don't see them winning any games, but like I said, Denmark and France, they'll be moving on there, and that should be an interesting game when Denmark and France play. Group D, which is Argentina, Iceland, Croatia, and Nigeria. Now, to me, I see Argentina. That's pretty much the gimme of that one. And then I see Croatia, the teams that'll move on. I don't know. I mean, those are the 2. Nigeria's okay, but I think Croatia's just a better team. As far as Group B, you have Costa Rica, Serbia, Brazil, and Switzerland. I see Brazil wiping out all these teams pretty well, and I see Switzerland getting a win when they play Costa Rica, and that's going to advance them to the next round. Slightly better than Costa Rica. So that's it, Switzerland and Brazil from that one. Group F, which is Germany, Mexico, Sweden, and Korea. I see Germany winning every one of their games there. And I think Mexico actually will be the next team to come out of there. They're okay. I mean, they have, another player to watch who I guess I should have put on that list, Chicharito. But I think Mexico, they're not going to beat Germany, but they can beat Korea, and they can tie Sweden, and by default, they'll just have more points than Sweden. And for Group G, that's it, Belgium, Panama, Tunisia, and England. I like Belgium and England in this group. Tunisia could surprise people, but I just don't see it. I think Belgium and England, plays solid, and I think Belgium's a solid team too. And Belgium's going to come out right out of this gate and beat Panama. I mean, I think they beat Tunisia, and I think them and England will be a pretty good match. That should be a tie. So Belgium and England from that. And in Group H, it's Colombia, Japan, Poland, and Senegal. I mean, I see Colombia not losing a game in that bracket. And then I think it's going to be a lot of ties. Just a lot of ties. I mean, I don't see anybody else in that division that can win. They're actually pretty close, but I think Poland has the most talent, and I'll pick them. So I'll pick Poland to go on with Colombia out of the H bracket. Ought to be interesting. I mean, the games start, was it the 14th, which is Thursday, and they go through the June 28th, so pretty much 2 weeks worth of games for the group schedule, and then they go on to the brackets, which will be really exciting. Sad that there's no USA in there, of course, but all the big name players are there. So I mean, like the real big name players. And I think for U.S. soccer, that's one of the problems they have. People say Pulisic. He's not on the level of these other stars. Maybe one day he will be, but when you talk about the top 7 to 8 guys in soccer, there's nobody on the USA team there. And that's what we have to develop. We have to develop, and usually it's going to be scorers. We have to develop that scorer. We need to develop that scorer here in the U.S. And I think one of the big things is keeping these kids shooting on the big nets. I coach soccer myself, and I see a lot of people practice. And I mean, older kids practicing on these tiny nets. Almost never goalkeepers in there. I think that's one, how you develop your goalkeepers and your shooters, is have them go against each other constantly at practice. And just the ball handling skills. I mean, we're just lacking it. And the U.S. just hasn't had a pure goal scorer on the men's side. I mean, you look at the women's side, there are pure goal scorers that are U.S. women's soccer that are top of the line. When you had Abby Wambach, pure goal scorer. That's all she did, is put the ball in the net. On set plays, there was nobody better. For just goal scoring, you have like Alex Morgan, you have Carly Lloyd. I mean, you can go 2 or 3 deep. There's even more girls, that I could mention that are just, top of the line goal scorers. And for the men, you really don't have that, sadly. And that's why U.S. soccer's hurting. Not part of the World Cup preview, but just a sad, mini diatribe. So I'm not yelling or anything into how U.S. soccer needs to change, and I think it will. I think there's definitely more excitement here with the MSL getting bigger, and I think a lot of the young kids seeing these stars that come over, even if it's at the end of their career. Some people just, they don't think it's good with MSL, and the stars coming near the end of their career, I think it's awesome. I mean, you think about it in terms of any other sport, like seeing one of the greatest players come to play for your team, even when, like, for example, Wayne Gretzky, when he came to the Rangers, he was near the end of his career. And you're like, this is the best player ever? And then all of a sudden, one game, he lights it up, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. He used to do that every game. That's the way he was. And you think, wow, that is greatness. Even if you catch just a little bit of it, even if it's for a 5-minute spurt or something like that, it is amazing to see in any sport. And that's what you want. You want to see the legends. So now we're done with sports. I was thinking maybe eventually I should do 2 shows, one with politics, one with sports. I don't know. I'll have to think about that and see if anybody wants to comment and tell me about it. Feel free. So let's get back to the news at hand, right? So this week we learned that good old Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, threatened to subpoena emails and phone records and documents of Republican lawmakers on the Intel Committee. It's just been confirmed. They thought about that before. So, I mean, basically this guy wanted to go after people who were trying to investigate wrongdoings under him. So he was making he was being threatened with contempt, and he's still in contempt. He hasn't turned over a lot of things that are asked of him. And so now he threatened the people who were asking him by saying he wanted to get their phone records and look at their text messages and so forth and so on. Another gross abuse of power by an unqualified fool. But that's Rod Rosenstein. And that's, Jeff Sessions' fault for standing by and letting this guy who's not only unqualified, but just incompetent and criminal, to say the least, continue to run investigations and whatnot. So here was a quick ill-fated story here. Ill-fated, it's the inappropriate words, I guess, for this one, but last week there were several notices sent out to several reporters and media outlets like WikiLeaks, Julia Assange, Kim.com, Roger Stone, Matt Couch, the Gateway Pundit, Cassandra Fairbanks, and there was Aaron Rich was demanding that these people turn over all their direct messages to his attorneys. And Aaron Rich is the brother of Seth Rich. Obviously, we've talked about Seth Rich many times on the show. I believed he was killed because of things he knew. And his family's been very defensive on that. His brother's been attacking people who have that theory, which I could understand a family not wanting to believe that. I can understand they think we're wrong, but to be so aggressive, constantly, I know at one point they threatened Sean Hannity for saying stuff. They've now tried to get information from Twitter, and now they've decided that they knew they didn't have the power to do that, so they dropped a subpoena to get this Twitter information because they knew by law they filed it, but they knew that it wouldn't hold up. So it's just very interesting that this family's been hardcore going after it. Now, what we do know about Seth Rich, and you can put everything else, rumor aside, whether he gave emails to WikiLeaks or whatever, he did this and that, that's all irrelevant. What we do know is he supposedly was murdered on a botched robbery. So somebody took the time to murder him, but they didn't take his expensive watch, which was right on his arm, so it's not like they couldn't see it. They didn't look for his wallet, which had money in it. They didn't take his jewelry. I mean, if you're going to kill somebody during a robbery, you would think it's more imperative that you take at least something, what you came for, especially since they had it there. It was out in the open. I mean, and it makes no sense, one, if you were just going to rob him, how he got murdered, right? I don't know. And they didn't take anything. So that story stinks. And you would think his family would be wanting to work any angle to figure it out, Hey, if you don't think that happened, then work that angle and prove it didn't. I mean, I understand they're sad and whatnot, but you'd want to know. I mean, this thing stinks. It just stinks to high heaven, the whole thing. Okay, so then we had the, I don't know, what is it? I don't know, what award show do they have, right? There's one every week. All these people do, these actors, pat themselves on the back. The Emmys, the Oscars, whatever, the Grammys, I know it's for music, the Tonys, right? So we had the Tony Awards. And we had, of course, Robert De Niro sitting there with a room full of high school students because they had the Parkland kids there. And we've heard Robert De Niro before talking about blank Trump, I'm going to punch Trump, F Trump, this and that. So then this week he gets up at the Tonys and with this, hatefulness, he just basically says, it's not, what did he say? It was not, I don't know, but he said F Trump. He ends up saying F Trump. It's not down with Trump, it's F Trump. And of course he's saying the F word, the F Trump, F Trump, F Trump, going on and on and on. to me, it's like this is a guy who doesn't understand he's not acting anymore. He needs to get out of this role he thinks he's in. Dude, you're not an actor 24 hours a day. He thinks he's this guy from, you know, the boxing movie, or he thinks he's, this tough CIA guy who played in one movie. He's not. He's just mad because Trump surpassed his success. He liked Trump before, but now he doesn't because Trump surpassed his success. So it's pretty funny that Trump gave him a new nickname and called him Punchy, which I think is absolutely on point. I mean, this guy is punchy, like punch drunk from his own acting. He thinks that's who he is, or punch drunk like he actually got hit in the head because he was boxing too much when he was younger. Very punchy. I mean, to just be this foul mouth. Here's a guy who's invested in properties in other countries, and then he wants you to pay money when they get destroyed by a hurricane. Here's a guy who's hung out with known child molesters. He's associated with underage girls. And all he's worried about is F Trump, F Trump. Like, one, Trump's had any effect on his life. I mean, how can a guy be so angry? Like, if you're somebody who's working and you got laid off because this, that, Trump did, I can understand your anger, man. I get it. But Trump's had no effect on De Niro's life. And yet, all this guy does is just beyond the pale. Like, beyond the pale. You don't like Trump, you want to call him dumb every once in a while. But, like, every time there's a microphone in your face, it's F this, F that. And that's it. And there's not even any, like, you're going to beat him up. Like, I mean, it's like a mini Joe Biden. It's like, first, you're a fool. I mean, this guy still believes he's like a bad comedian on stage. I don't know. He's like the guy that's washed up in the smoke-filled room, and he's just trying to make another $50, and he has no more jokes. Everything's played out, and he's drinking too much. And so it's going to be F this, F you, and you're fat, and you're ugly, and you're a piece of junk, because he has no comedy left. And that's the only way he thinks he's going to get a laugh. And yeah, people think it's funny at a point. But unfortunately, when you're in a room with the Tony Awards, I mean, really, one, half the time they're laughing at you and not with you. And two, I mean, you're talking about other swamp dwellers like yourself. I know, that's just my opinion on it. But what do I know, right? I'm not as cool as the actor who still thinks he's a boxer. Excellent. So now, we'll move on to San Francisco. Now, we know how demented of a town it is. Beautiful to look at from far, right? Pretty from far, but far from pretty these days. Looks gorgeous. Everybody knows has been there. And then when you get up close these days, what do you see? The needles, the junkies, smell the urine. So, pretty from far, but far from pretty. So, the new savior for the town, I guess, is the sleek and shiny spaceship-like, complete with eco-friendly planters and roof gardens. The public toilets. That's right. San Francisco officials selected that look for their future public toilets in the city from among 3 finalists in the design competition. So you can take a crap, and there's stuff growing on top. You can take a crap, and you might think you're in the spaceship. So, of course, probably the most expensive design there was. But you can get some flowers in there. It'll open up some garden space. So the city has 25 public toilets and 114 public advertising kiosks, which are also part of the redesign. So I wonder if the advertisements are when you're taking a dump, use Charmin, don't squeeze the Charmin, or squeeze the Charmin and hopefully wipe your ass with it. I don't know. I'm not sure what the advertisements are, use Trojan condoms or go get some, I don't know, or, you can get your free needle here down the block. We're advertising for our own demise. Who knows what it is. But, spaceship-like toilets. That, my friends, is exactly what San Francisco needs to spend the taxpayer money on. If they aren't losing the expensive art in their museum, giving it to politicians on loan, they're wasting your taxpayer money. Remember the poop map that they have? Or now they have toilets. So you can mark the brown spots on the poop map with the new toilets they have, right? Great. So you always hear how America doesn't give. Remember, there were some, when there's a hurricane here or a tragic earthquake there, oh, America can do more, America can do this, blah, blah, blah. Americans don't give. That's funny. So, charitable giving in the U.S. topped $400 billion in 2017. Let that sink in when somebody tells you America doesn't give. That doesn't include, that's just money. It doesn't include the hard work, the time, and the sacrifice people make for, all the downtrodden, whether it's kids or animals in this country who are the people, or animals, need the most help in this country. Not the adults who want to keep on using drugs and we're supposed to feel sorry for them. No, the kids who are the actual real victims of these crimes. The kids and the animals who have no choice but to live the way, it's almost chosen for them. That's who we need to help. And we've not only donated lots of money as a country, but the time and the sacrifice and the heart and the caring. So don't let anyone tell you how the U.S. doesn't do anything. Let's see. Wasteful, Claire McCaskill, Democrat, but who cares? More that she's a piece of junk. So she had her campaign where she was hitting the road in an RV to tour a state. But it found out that her Big Blue, which was the name of her RV, that she was using a plane as well, besides her Veterans for Claire tour, as she said. So it's funny, she was supposed to be doing an RV trip for a few days, posting her updates and doing her little pictures and saying how awesome she was, going around the state. And sorry, but it was found out that good old McCaskill had taken steps to hide the use of her plane. Another fraud from good old Claire. But what do you expect from her? She is a lowlife. Speaking of people who are lowlifes, and I know we're not supposed to say this about Supreme Court judges, but as you know, in Ohio, it came down to a 5-4 vote. It's ridiculous that the Supreme Court came down to a 5-4 upholding in favor of Ohio's method of removing voters from its rolls. Now, Sotomayor wrote her big dissent on it, blah, 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 and nothing she wrote, to summarize it, had to do with the ruling. And on top of all of that stuff, none of it has to do with common sense. I'm going to tell you this, because put the rules aside. Can we ever rule by common sense? They make, in Ohio, every reasonable effort. Stop with this disenfranchising people, and African Americans and immigrants won't vote. If you don't vote for 2 years in Ohio, they reach out to you and they ask you, verify your information, something. And after they reach out to you, if you don't get back to them, you haven't voted for 2 years, you don't get back to them, and they wait another 4 years. And then if they don't hear from you and you haven't voted, so if you haven't voted in 6 years, you haven't responded to the request, then they take you off the voter rolls. Now, that's beyond reasonable. 6 years. And yet, here it is, of course, you have, degenerates coming after Ohio. But the Supreme Court, thank goodness, upheld it 5-4. And it is ridiculous that, of course, is the same classless judges, Ginsburg, Kagan, Sotomayor, just dissent in full. I mean, why do you want people that obviously aren't voting? They're not disenfranchised. They haven't voted for 6 years. They haven't tried to even contact and say, yeah, this is me, I'm not voting, or I don't want to vote, but keep me on there. If you can't reach out in 6 years, sorry. It's like the same old thing where they say, oh, IDs would hinder people from voting. Now, if voting is so important to you, then go and get an ID. Oh, they can't afford to get an ID. No, if voting is so important to you, you can afford to get an ID. We'll do a free ID program. I have no problem with that. Verify who you are, bring your ID when you vote. Thank you, end of story. One vote. We're tired of these shams, We're tired of these shams. And let me tell you, because it happens, California is the biggest proof of the sham. They don't want to take anybody off the voter rolls, and the California's voting system is rigged. Everybody knows that. You saw in this just recent election they had there. It shows you how somebody stays in power. People go to vote, and it says, oh no, you changed the way you wanted to vote. You said you wanted a mail-in ballot. People that have been going to the polling places for a decade. And it says, sorry, your vote might not be counted. So they're switching your voter status from mail-in to showing up in person. So if you show up, your vote is void. So, and they said by accident, I think it was like 1 million people almost, their voting status got switched. And most people know they wouldn't trust over there the mail-in ballot. So these people are showing up to vote as they've done year after year after year, and now their vote is not going to be counted because somebody switched it to a mail-in vote. So you can devalidate votes that you want to. Hey, these 50 people are going to vote for this person. Oh, I don't like that. Switch it off. So funny how in Ohio they're suing because after 6 years of no contact, how dare them take out the voter rolls, but in California they just switch whoever they want. So your vote's not counted. There were over 1 million votes that weren't counted in this last California election. And they'll say it's too much money, or we'll count it if we need to, but we're going to call the election and our person won. You see sometimes, people get arrested for voter fraud here and there, and they don't even try to arrest people. There are tons of cases, and I'm sure if they looked into it more, you would find hundreds of thousands, if not close to 1 million votes that are just not legitimate, whether it's people that have been dead, whether it's people that are handicapped, or even criminals who aren't supposed to vote. That's just the way it is. You'll see people it shows that they've never voted when they voted every year. Each county is different. It's hard to even get in touch with these people that change it. But that's California. The election's called by 9 p.m. and sorry, there's people coming in to drop off ballots, and nope, they're not going to be counted, or you're standing to vote. Yeah, your vote's not going to matter. That is your real, that's your real voter suppression there. But you don't hear the Democrats or the libs ever talking about that. Unfortunately, that's the fraud you live in. And that's why you got to be persistent, and I think we just need a few arrests. Speaking of few arrests, the highly anticipated, and I don't know, because I just feel like we're going to be let down, because we've been let down. We've been left at the altar many a times here. But the 500-page IG report is supposed to be delivered to Congress at noon on Thursday. They'll have a review period for an hour. to get a head start, and then it's supposed to be released to the public at 1 p.m. on Thursday. So that ought to be interesting. We will see how the Inspector General handled this. Did he really look into the stuff, or is it another yada, yada, yada? I'm hoping for, and I've seen some details that show that maybe he looked into this and we'll get some criminal referrals and a reopening of these investigations that were fraudulently closed, and hopefully we get multiple criminal referrals. It would be nice. They really need to do some investigative work, not only on that pertaining to Hillary Clinton's email scam and that whole case, how they tried to keep her eligible for the presidency, where in any normal circumstance, if anybody did a quarter of that, a smidgen of that, they would have been in jail, not even eligible. Or, yeah, I guess you could vote for them if they're still in prison. Technically, they might still be in the race, but obviously, yeah. So, that'll close out the show with Reality Check. Thanks for watching. Until next week, enjoy some soccer and enjoy some relaxation. Adios.